The end of the year is approaching, and it is time to reflect on the path taken in the film industry. 2024 was a year marked by major box office failures, and we can certainly say that it has not been a good year for Hollywood. Looking ahead to the awards season, where productions such as Conclave, The Brutalist, Anora, Wicked, and Dune 2 promise to shine. Some films will not make it onto the lists, either because their story failed to convince the public, or simply because some factors led them to failure. Below, we review this ranking with some of the worst films of 2024. When considering failures, we're not just talking about movies that didn't make enough money at the box office, but also those that were heavily criticized by both audiences and industry experts alike. The Fall Guy. The long-awaited film from David Leitch, known for hits like Deadpool 2, John Wick, and Bullet Train, seemed destined to be a hit. Starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, the plot about a stuntman caught up in a dangerous real-life adventure promised to capture the action-loving public. However, it wasn't enough. Released in April, the film grossed just $181 million worldwide, falling short of its $125 million budget. Despite its stellar cast and interesting concept, The Specialist failed to connect with audiences, becoming one of the most talked about flops of the year. Joker, Folie à Deux. The long-awaited sequel to Joker hit theaters with high expectations, but audiences did not respond as expected. The gamble of turning the story into a musical starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga proved divisive. The film grossed $206 million worldwide, barely surpassing its $200 million budget. In addition to its low box office, critics were not forgiving. It received a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes and a D on CinemaScore, sealing its fate as a commercial and artistic failure. Compared to the overwhelming success of the first installment, Joker, Folie à Deux left a bitter feeling of disappointment.
Look around! Look at all these people!
Argylle. With a cast led by Henry Cavill and the film debut of Dua Lipa, Argylle seemed to have everything to succeed. Adapted from a novel that had not even been published, the film directed by Matthew Vaughn promised to be an exciting thriller. However, the reality was different. Released in February, the film grossed only $96 million against a budget of $200 million. Audiences and critics alike agreed that the film failed to live up to expectations created by its ambitious advertising campaign, becoming one of the biggest financial disasters of the year. Madam Web. The Spider-Man universe continues to expand, but Madam Web, starring Dakota Johnson, failed to capture the public's attention. The film told the story of Cassandra Webb, a paramedic with special abilities, but its execution left much to be desired. With a global box office take of just over $100 million and a budget that was around that same amount, Madam Web became Sony's worst release in the Spider-Man universe. The film failed at the box office and was slammed by critics, who gave it a score of 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Definitely one of the worst of the year. Furiosa from the Mad Max Saga. Following the runaway success of Mad Max, Fury Road, the prequel Furiosa, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, was met with high expectations. However, its release left much to be desired. The film grossed just $173 million globally, barely surpassing its $168 million budget. Despite opening the Cannes Film Festival and building on the legacy of the series, Furiosa failed to generate the conversation its predecessor had sparked. Its lukewarm reception at both the box office and critics quickly left it forgotten, marking an unmemorable close to one of cinema's most iconic franchises. Megalopolis. Much was said and expected about Francis Ford Coppola's new film. His ambitious science fiction project was decades in development, and its premiere took place at the Cannes Film Festival. Unfortunately, no one fully understood the filmmaker's vision, who imagined an epic and Roman fable of a futuristic America, where a young architect seeks to take the city to a new era. Despite having a luxury cast led by Adam Driver, Aubrey Plaza, Nathalie Emmanuel, Shia LaBeouf, Jon Voight, and Giancarlo Esposito, the senseless story and its confusing montage made it very difficult to see.
Don't let the now destroy the forever.
Borderlands. Action cinema did not have its best 2024, and Borderlands was proof of that. Based on the popular video game of the same name, the film revolves around a group of misfits who embark on a mission in search of the daughter of a very powerful man. Despite having Eli Roth directing, and a cast that includes names like Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Edgar Ramirez, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black, the story never managed to connect with the audience. Not only was it a box office failure, but the studio also didn't bother to promote it.
How many people have died looking for this vault?
The Crow. Since a remake of The Crow was announced, the public quickly turned against it, especially given how beloved Alex Proyas' 1994 film is, and which marked the fatal accident of Brandon Lee. This new bet was directed by Rupert Sanders and starred Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs. But after its release, the public couldn't help but compare it to its predecessor, which led to very negative reviews and a terrible run in theaters.
Until you put the wrong things right.
Red won. This Christmas proposal had several promising elements. A luxury cast headed by Chris Evans, Dwayne Johnson, J.K. Simmons, Lucy Liu, and Kernan Shipka, and an original story involving the kidnapping of Santa Claus. Unfortunately, none of these managed to work at all, and the result was an action movie with jokes that weren't funny at all and a story full of cliches. As if that weren't enough, the film was a total failure in theaters, as it didn't even manage to raise its $250 million investment.
That was so disturbing.
Kraven the Hunter. After its recent release in theaters, Kraven the Hunter manages to sneak into the ranking of the worst of the year. Although it is not worse than Madame Web, the story simply does not work and becomes another Sony Pictures blunder. The iconic Spider-Man villain is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who, despite having a lot of experience in the action genre, does not manage to save the film, which becomes the last worst of the season. There are special mentions, which, although they were not commercial failures, they were for critics, as is the case of Mean Girls. Yes, the reboot of the already known film starring Lindsay Lohan and Rachel McAdams, but now in the form of a musical. Another separate ranking should be the horror genre. It had a year of good and bad releases, as in every genre, to be honest. And there is something for everyone. Here is a small ranking of those I saw this year. If you agree, can you let me know in the comments? Or, if not, which one did I miss to add it? Then there are cases of simply bad films that were not released in theaters, as is the case of The Ugly, Mea Culpa, or the well-known Megamind, which was not even given the opportunity to be presented to the public on the big screen.
Any way to welcome your old crew.
Are new ideas over? The sequel disease. One thing has become clear in 2024. Sequels may or may not be a business. But new ideas do not seem to convince production company executives. They prefer to bet on something safe than produce new scripts. Some clues as to why such a debacle are in plain sight. The most watched films of the year are sequels, prequels, or something similar. Deadpool 3, Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, Dune Part 2, Godzilla and Kong, Twisters, Kung Fu Panda 4, Beetlejuice 2, Bad Boys 4, Planet of the Apes, New Kingdom, Wicked, Moana 2. And with this reflection, can we take some of that blame? Do we just want to see the same old thing? Or do we want a new Quentin Tarantino? A new Martin Scorsese? Many argue that this has been a year of transition, with the previous year's screenwriters' strike affecting the completion of many projects. Another aspect to take into account is the power that influencers in the film industry have achieved, and how promoting or giving visibility to a film can make the public flock to the theaters, as was the case with Deadpool and Wolverine, or Dune Part 2. Can streaming platforms affect box office receipts? The truth is that the exclusivity periods for a film that is released in theaters are becoming shorter and shorter. With just a 2 to 3 week wait, you can watch it in the comfort of your home. Could it be that people are losing interest in the theater experience? The times when people stood in endless lines to see their favorite movie seem far away. The loss of interest and saturation of the superhero genre has left Marvel with memories of having achieved that fever at its best with Avengers.
Assemble.
For more adult cinema, the best releases will hit the big screen in January 2025. Although they already premiered at Cannes this year, like The Brutalist, Conclave, and Emilia Perez, very good stories, but they are the kind of films that never explode in movie theaters. But they are the ones that win the awards. Here is the compilation of the worst movies of this year 2024. If you want to see a ranking of the best movies, you can leave me your opinion in the comments and support the content with a thumbs up and a subscription. Until a new video.